If you're watching this video, you are ready to take dividing decimals to the next level. So far, we have only done division problems where you solve the problem and there's just automatically no remainder, or we've only really had to annex one place value with a zero. And in real life, that's not really the case. I've had to work really hard to come up with specific problems for you that work out that way. In real life, there are different types of decimals, and I'm just going to go over them with you super duper quickly. The first one are called terminating decimals. To terminate means to end. And what that means is eventually, after annexing one time or two times or three times, eventually you would get to zero as a remainder. Those are called terminating decimals, excuse me. That happens sometimes. We've basically been working with terminating decimals, and they've been terminating after one annex at the most. In life, there are also something called repeating decimals. And what that means is that the annexing will go on forever, but that you will see a pattern form. And sometimes the pattern is different numbers over and over again. Like in this case, you can see that the numbers 4, 5 repeat over and over again. Some repeating decimals, it ends up being the same digit that you find just keeps happening over and over again. And then there are decimals called infinite decimals. Infinite means they go on forever, like repeating decimals do, but that there's no pattern to it. It's just random. You see these three dots here. These are called ellipses, and that means go on forever. That's what that means. Like it would keep going. So it says here in your paper that decimals that go on forever are not very practical. Like forever is a really hard thing to manage. So in the real world, we need decimals to come to an end. If we have a repeating decimal or if we have an infinite decimal, we need to stop it somewhere. But we can't just cut it off. We have to do it mathematically by rounding them off to a place value that makes sense to make them end. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what I mean by that. Without a doubt, the most common place value to round off to is the nearest hundredth, because one of the most common real life experiences with decimals is money. And with money, we only go to the hundredths place. We only have pennies, which are worth a hundredth of a dollar. So let me give you an example here. Let's say you have three friends and they go to the ice cream shop and they order some ice cream. And Johnny here gets a two scooper, Martha here gets two scooper, and Pete gets one scoop. And their total bill is $9.95. Now, obviously, they didn't get the same thing. Like Pete only got one scoop, but they agreed to divide the bill evenly between the three of them. And so if you were to set up this problem or even plug into the calculator $9.95 divided by 3, you can see what you get here. And in the real world, guys, we use calculators. Like when I go to a restaurant, if I want to divide a bill between my friends, I'm going to pull out my calculator. I'm not going to grab a piece of paper and do the math this way. So you're looking here at what the calculator would show. Now, this amount represents money. And if you take a look at it, this amount of money does not make sense. If I'm asking Martha to pay this amount of money, I can't really do that. And so what we have to do is we need to think about what this amount of money really means. And since we're dealing with money in the decimal universe, I don't know where my little drawy pen is. So I'm trying to do it with my mouse. Oh, let me grab that. That might work better. Hopefully, maybe. Nope, totally not. Money only goes and always goes to two place values. It goes to the dimes and it goes to the pennies. And so we need to look at this amount, and I can't ask any of these friends to pay this amount because it doesn't make sense. I want to round this amount to the nearest penny or the nearest hundredth. Well, I can see very clearly that the 1 is in the hundredths place. So this is going to be my boss, and the 6 is going to be my right-hand man. The boss totally gets a raise, so that 1 is actually going to become a 2. Everybody after gets fired. And what you need to remember is we're not going to fire these 6s and turn them to 0s. We're going to, because they're in the Thuniverse, they're going to poof disappear, and everything above the boss stays the same. And so what would happen is Martha and her two friends would each have to pay $3.32. That's what that means. Sometimes when you get an amount, like if you were to take an amount of money and divide it on the calculator, you might get that each friend owes this amount of money, right? But that does not say $4.02 because money does not go to the 10th place. Money always, always, always goes to the 100th place. And so if a calculator tells you this amount of money, you need to be smart enough and understand math enough to realize that that does not mean $4.02. That means $4.20 because that too represents 2/10 of a dollar, which are dimes. So this really means $4.20. So anyway, going back to what you're doing, I give you a couple of examples here. If you have 8.3, blah, 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 blah. If I ask you to round this to the nearest hundredth, our boss would be the one and he would get a raise. So it would round off to and end at 8 32 hundredths. If I have this repeating decimal, 0.5858585858, if I ask you to round it to the nearest tenth, well, then our boss is going to be the digit in the 10th place. That's the 5. The right-hand man's going to be the 8. He totally gets a raise. And so it would round off and end in the 10th place at 0 6/10. So what I've done here is I've given you some problems that are either repeating or they are infinite. And I want you to round them off to the nearest hundredth. Now, if you think about it for a minute, this infinite decimal would go on forever. If you want to know where you need to go before you're able to round it off, think about it logically. If I'm asking you to round something to the nearest hundredth, that means the boss would be in the hundredth place. And the only other number that is necessary to know is the right-hand man, which is in the very next place value, the thousandth place. It doesn't matter what's in this place value or this place value or this place value. Those are not important. So when you think about, if I ask you to round it off to the nearest hundredth, you'd need to go one place value past that to figure out who the right-hand man would be. You don't need to go on forever. There are a bunch of questions for you to practice. Be sure you put your final answer where it says answer, because you're going to have your work. You'll need to round it off, and I want that rounded off answer. You're going to go ahead and check in every question. You got this.